10:01. Excellent. So now we are streaming on the World Wide Web, as they used to call it. And welcome to this morning's meeting of the Joint Committee on Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services. We have a number of public hearings scheduled for this morning, and then a work session as well. And we will start with committee introductions, beginning with Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Richard Evans. I represent District 120, including the towns of Atkinson, Brownville, Dover Foxcroft, Medford, Milo, Arnaville Township, and Lakeview Plantation.
Great. Next, we'll hear from Representative Arford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. I am Representative Poppy Arford. I represent District 49, which is the western part of Brunswick.
And Representative Matheson.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christy Matheson, and I represent District 1 in Kittery.
Representative Quint.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Quint, and I represent House District 144, which includes Amity, Bancroft, Benedicta, Cary, Glenwood, Haynesville, Hodgdon, Holton, Macklahock, Molunkus, Orient, Reed, Silver Ridge Township, South Aroostook, and good morning.
Good morning. Representative Blyer.
Good morning. My name is Mark Blyer. I represent District 22, which is Leamington and part of Buxton, Standish, and Limerick.
Representative Malrano.
Good morning. My name is Gina Melarano. I represent House District 62, which is part of Auburn.
Representative Brooks.
Good morning. My name is Heidi Brooks. I represent House District 61, which is part of Lewiston.
Representative Morris.
Good morning. I'm Representative Joshua Morris. I represent House District 75, which is Turner, Leeds, and Livermore.
Representative Senator Brenner, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Stacy Brenner. I represent Senate District 30, which includes the gorgeous Scarborough Marsh.
Representative Tepler.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Denise Tepler. I represent House District number 54, which is all of the town of Topsail.
And I'm Senator Heather Sanborn. I represent Senate District 28, which is half of Portland and half of Westbrook. We do have a number of folks who have other commitments at 11. And so we're going to go through as quickly as we can to try and hear a couple of bills before we get to 11 a.m. So we will start with LD 1544, an act regarding credit and debit card merchant fees. I'll invite Representative Sachs to join us and just let everyone know that we will be running a 3-minute clock today for all other than the legislators who testify. Good morning, Representative Sachs. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and esteemed members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Melanie Sachs. I'm honored to represent House District 48, which includes Freeport and part of Pownell. I am delighted to present to you LD 1544, an act regarding credit and debit card merchant fees this morning. As the representative of Freeport, one of our state's largest retail economic centers, several of my constituents expressed strong interest in a legislative solution for costly and non-negotiable swipe fees. Card companies and banks collect swipe fees, also known as interchange fees, on each transaction in which a customer uses a credit or debit card to make a purchase. The card brands, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover, to name a few, set both a network and swipe fees that retailers must pay every time a card is swiped, dipped, tapped, or entered online. The premise of today's electronic payments method is that retailers not only pay swipe fees on the base price of that transaction, but also on the sales tax that they're collecting for the state. Retailers are collecting and remitting sales tax for the state at the retailer's expense, and the credit card companies and banks are making additional profit from the tax portion of that receipt. And for retailers, that sales tax is 5.5%. For restaurants and our lodging properties, that tax rate is 8 and 9.9% respectively. Because of COVID, as you probably know, retailers saw a seismic shift in 2020 in card spending as consumers quickly changed their shopping habits in response to the pandemic. One business in my district, Pownell Veterinary Hospital, noted that they, like so many service companies during the pandemic, did not see any increase in customers, but did see a significant rise in fees as customers moved from cash or check payment methods to exclusively credit card use in an effort to be contactless and compliant. Consumers nationwide continue to shift to card payments and expect their real retailers to accept them. Cards account for more than 63% of transactions and almost 100% for online. Visa and MasterCard hold over 70% of the card market volume. Consumers increased their online spending by a whopping 44%, or $861.12 billion in the US in 2020. And online merchants, including those brick and mortar retailers who have an online component, pay even higher credit card interchange fees than the brick and mortar merchants because they're more they're more amenable to fraud, known as card not present transaction. This legislation would exclude just the state and local taxes and other fees from the total in which an interchange fee is charged for an electronic credit or debit card transaction. The goal is to save the retailer money by processing the charge of the sales amount on the sale of the good or service only. This would stimulate economic activity and help lift a costly burden off of businesses at a critical time and at absolutely no cost to the state. Fortunately, the technology is in place to implement what this legislation is seeking to accomplish. Merchants will not need specialized equipment to implement. Consider how many restaurants, for example, today can enter a sales amount followed by a separate tip amount into their PIN pads. Retailer systems can easily transmit the pre-tax purchase amount followed by the sales tax. Systems already support the ability to differentiate sales and totals goods from the sales tax or fee amount. Credit cards transactions, for example, fall into 3 different data levels, 1, 2, and 3. Each level requires a certain amount of information to qualify transactions, and the higher the level it is, the more detail that it requires. The higher the data, cards and banks require that merchants pass, for example, level 2 data in the transaction, which already has the sales tax separated from the purchase amount. For level 2 processing, businesses are required to capture all the level 1 data, credit card number and expiration, billing address, and zip code, plus the sales tax amount, customer code, merchant postal code, merchant tax identification, invoice number, and order number. Visa and MasterCard mandate system updates twice per year, so any other small system changes can be implemented during these updates. Because today's point of sale systems have the necessary level of transactional insight, there is not anticipated to be any additional administration fees to be passed on to merchants or consumers. In addition, if the tax or fee cannot be deducted from the calculation of the interchange fee, this bill allows for a rebate to be issued, providing 2 solutions for the processors. Consumers are losing money because they must pay higher retail prices to cover the billions of dollars in swipe fees that merchants pay each year. Nationally, these fees amount to $100 billion annually. It's likely that we'll hear this morning from credit card providers that their fees will increase to accommodate these modifications to continue to service these accounts with secured and reduced risks. But I have citations within my testimony that indicate that Visa and MasterCard and banks are already passing on these fraud costs back to merchants every year in the form of chargebacks, and banks charge cardholders interest to offset credit risk. Luckily, states have the authority to prohibit the credit card companies from charging swipe fees on state sales tax. Prohibiting swipe fees on sales tax will keep dollars in the state, stimulating economic activity versus sending those dollars to networks and banks in other states and countries. Maine collects approximately $1.5 billion in sales tax from retailers, restaurants, and lodging properties. If we assume that 63% of transactions are with credit and debit cards, and that those swipe fees average 3.5%, this bill will save our businesses $34 to $35 million annually. It's important to think of this bill as in terms of a totality for monthly or annual sales as opposed to individual transaction. Every penny counts, and our retailers' transactions in total are significant, resulting in real savings for our merchants. I'm pleased to sponsor LD 1544 to bring some financial relief to Maine's businesses who are handcuffed by the economic viable necessity to accept these payment types without the flexibility to negotiate or recuperate their costs. Thank you for entertaining this very wonky bill first thing this morning, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Sachs. Are there any questions for Representative Sachs? Representative Evans.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Sachs, for bringing this forward. Is there a current cap on the amount of swipe fees that can be charged?
That's an excellent question, Representative. One of the problems with the swipe fees, and you'll hear this from several folks who are coming up behind me, is that they are really opaque, that each one can set a very different cap. I believe on debit card transaction, it's 21 cents per swipe on the debit cards, but the mix in terms of how these are calculated is quite opaque, and they are not negotiable. Oftentimes it's around 3.5%, but retailers were telling me they have a very hard time diving in, trying to separate it from everything else.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there additional questions for Representative Sachs? All right, seeing none, we'll next hear from Curtis Picard.
There are two Curtises. Maybe we could have the real one raise their hand.
Okay. Good morning to the real Curtis Picard. I have 3 minutes on the clock and would love to hear from you.
Good morning, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the HCIFS committee. I am Curtis Picard, President and CEO of the Retail Association of Maine, and I'm here today to testify in support of LD 1544. First, I want to publicly thank Representative Sachs for the hard work and research she has done on this bill. Shortly after the election, Representative Sachs reached out to us because during her campaign, she spoke with a number of retailers in her Freeport district. Time after time, she heard from the businesses about the incredibly high cost of credit and debit card swipe fees, and she wanted to know what she could do to help. We weren't surprised, as this was an issue we hear about frequently from our members. So we gave her the long history of credit and debit card swipe fees and the various efforts at the state and federal level to try to address these issues. We've had some modest success. The Durbin Amendment that was part of the federal Dodd-Frank Financial Reform Act helped lower debit card swipe fees, but not credit cards, from approximately 45 cents a transaction to the current 21 cents per transaction. But it's worth noting in relation to Representative Evans' question that the 21 cent cap in debit is for larger banks of 10 billion or more of assets. The smaller banks are not limited by that cap. The banks and credit card companies testifying in opposition to the bill today likely won't mention that their argument that the Durbin Amendment was going to be the end of free checking at banks, it wasn't, or their unsuccessful effort to repeal the Durbin Amendment when President Trump took office. At the state level, we've tried addressing this issue by advocating for surcharging and did receive some clarification from the Bureau on how businesses can advertise a cash or credit price. In fact, we talked about going that route again this year, but we chose this avenue instead as we felt it was a new approach that a number of states are taking a look at. It was simply a coincidence that the insurance agents in the Secretary of State submitted LD 160 and LD 800, which raised the surcharge issue once again. We've also tried to establish a sales tax collection allowance or vendor compensation through the Taxation Committee in previous sessions, but those bills always die under the weight of a fiscal note. What makes LD 1544 a worthy discussion is the recognition that Maine's retailers, restaurants, and large properties are required to collect and remit the full 5.5, 8, or 9% sales taxes, and the credit card companies profit significantly. However, because 63% of the transactions are paid by credit and debit cards, these businesses pay between 3 and 4% of the costs in swipe fees simply to collect the taxes. On the heels of the pandemic, where consumers were strongly urged not to use cash because of fears of virus transmission and having businesses shut down or interrupted, it's time to try to address these costs for Maine businesses. LD 1544 would prevent the large credit card companies from charging swipe fees on the sales tax portion of the transaction. It's that simple. There's no fiscal impact to the state and there's no burden on consumers. The credit card companies will tell you that this is too hard to do and that everyone will need to upgrade their machines. We do not believe this to be true. So I will stop there as I realize I'm out of time, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Picard. Are there questions for Mr. Picard? Mr. Picard, in Representative Sachs's testimony, I think she, or perhaps it was in her written testimony, she suggests that this is as simple as running two separate transactions, where you just run the total amount first, and then you run the sales tax amount separately. As you know, I run a busy restaurant, and doing that would be super prohibitive and also wouldn't work with my point of sale system. So can you speak to how this would work in practice at a retail establishment? I mean, I don't have one of those little like phone in, keypad things where you enter the transactions one at a time. We have an integrated modern POS system that runs the credit cards in the background, and it is not set up for this. So can you speak to why you don't think this is going to require additional technology or investment on the part of retailers?
Yeah, for the same reason, within your business, you're able to accept tips after a card has already been swiped. So if I go into Rising Tide and, have a few beverages with friends and go to check out, you present the check to us for, say, $50. We want to add on that 20% tip. You take our card, you swipe the $50 charge, then come back later on with that tip. So what we're saying is that data is already being captured within the system. The technology already exists there. And the restaurant example is probably the best example we can bring for people to understand how two separate transactions can sometimes happen. But our understanding is, depending on what your level of PCI compliance is, that sales tax data is already being captured. So with the sophistication that already exists with chip cards and credit card processors, we honestly just don't buy the argument that the technology doesn't exist or it's going to be too hard to do.
Okay. That's certainly one model, but check presentment is not typical nowadays. We have contactless payments, so we don't do paper check presentment with paper tips at a lot of places anymore, and certainly not at retail establishments. So it just strikes me as very confusing how that would actually work. But I'm curious if anyone else has any questions for Mr. Picard. All right. Seeing none, we'll next hear from Christine Cummings.
Good morning. Hello, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Christine Cummings. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Grocers and Food Producers Association. We are a trade group representing Maine's food community, including Main Street businesses, independently owned and operated grocery stores, supermarkets, and distributor wholesale partners. We hear regularly from our members that costly and non-negotiable swipe fees are a priority issue. And I think this issue actually hits really close to home. I grew up working at my dad's convenience store, and he regularly only carries cash in an effort to avoid both swipe fees for other merchants in which he shops at. And so a conversation that we used to have around the dinner table is now an issue that I am advocating on today. So as you've heard from both Mr. Burkhardt as well as Representative Sachs, credit card swipe fees average about 2%, but they can be as high as 4% depending on the credit card, whether that card has premium rewards or if it's processed online or entered by hand. Credit card fees inhibit grocers' ability to grow, invest in jobs, and results in potentially higher food prices for everyone. Our food market in particular is hyper competitive, and our industry averages anywhere from 1%, 2% to 3% profit margin. The food industry is committed to serving all of our customers, and in today's competitive market, we don't have the opportunity to not accept credit cards. However, we cannot negotiate other terms of the acceptance of these transaction methods or the cost due to the size and the market strength of the major companies that set the regulations and the prices. To put this bill in context, I thought it would be helpful to note a small independently owned and operated store here in Central Maine generated approximately 2.3 million in annual sales in 2020, and the expense to offer electronic payment services cost this merchant $31,000. Assuming about 63% of sales are debit and credit card transactions and the state's 5.5 sales percent, this bill could save the merchant approximately $1,600 annually, which is about 5% of the cost of their annual interchange fees. Just to put it in perspective, it would offset a month's worth of utilities, taxes, and licenses, or payroll tax expenses for the business, putting money back into the business for investments. Prohibiting swipe fees on sales tax will keep dollars in the state versus sending them away to networks and banks. And we ask the committee to please consider finding a path forward for a solution for Maine's businesses seeking relief for swipe fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cummings. Thanks for staying under the 3 minutes. Are there questions for Ms. Cummings? All right, seeing none, I will ask if there's anyone else who wishes to testify in favor of the bill. Seeing none, we will call on those wishing to testify in opposition to the bill. I'll start with Ed or Kate Pino, whoever is here. It looks like Ed. Ah, there they are. Good morning, Mr. Pino. Go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and distinguished members of the committee. I am Ed Pino, a resident of Vassalboro, and today I'm representing the Maine Credit Union League in opposition to LD 1544. The Credit Unions League is a trade association for Maine's 54 credit unions and has over 700,000 members. As this committee knows, COVID-19 pandemic created many fundamental changes in our society. One of the bigger impacts of the pandemic was the way we conducted business. The early days, scientists and our medical experts weren't sure how the virus could be spread. Therefore, it really pushed everyone, a lot of folks, towards electronic that weren't using it and less cash transactions, if any at all. If enacted, 1544 would make it harder for consumers to use their electronic payments. The bill would necessitate an overhaul of existing card systems of our terminals and a separation of price and sales tax. Replacement of existing equipment and our software it's going to cost retailers and us too. Additionally, required investment is likely to disappropriately, Rob wrote this, impact small businesses and their customers. If a company doesn't change its system, it would be forced to use cash only. Essentially, the bill would require that customers conduct 2 separate transactions, as the chair mentioned, one for the purchase price and the other for tax and fees, adding confusion at the time of the transaction. The other thing is 1544 would make Maine an outlier, and in this case, being an outlier would negatively impact Maine consumers who use electronic payments to conduct their business. With that, I'll take any questions. I'm happy to work with the committee at work session.
Thank you, Mr. Pino. Are there questions for Mr. Pino? Mr. Pino, are these swipe fees, can they be deducted as regular business expenses?
I don't know. I can find out the work session.
Thanks. Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll hear from Kathy Kenaboris. Good morning. We can go ahead.
Terrific. Good morning, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Kathy Kennaboris. I'm a resident of Hollis, and I'm here today representing the Maine Bankers Association. I testify today in opposition to LD 1544. The infrastructure that this bill requires does not exist, and it is uncertain if the many businesses involved in the electronic payment system, many of which are located outside of Maine, would be required to accommodate the law. Similar proposals to LD 1544 have been considered in other state legislatures in previous years. Those legislatures have uniformly rejected similar proposals due to harm to consumers, loss of sales tax revenue, legal deficiencies, and operational hurdles. Please remember the consumer does not pay the interchange fee. The interchange fee is paid by businesses initiating the transaction. Our customers and your constituents will be harmed by the passage of LD 1544 because it would create a state-specific bifurcated checkout process. A consumer would be required to pay via two separate transactions, one for the sale of the product or service and the other for the tax portion of the sale. A separate cash or check transaction for the tax portion of the sale would be a huge burden to consumers when paying large ticket items such as for computers or electronics. Smaller businesses would also be harmed by passage of this bill because they would have to create and implement new systems, operational mechanisms to ensure compliance with the legislation. Retailers realize huge benefits from accepting payment cards, including more sales, less fraud, and faster payment. Some merchants express concern that accepting credit and debit cards is costly. However, according to the Electronic Payments Coalition, recent studies show that merchants prefer electronic payment over cash payments due to high cost of handling cash. For instance, in 2017 alone, $96 billion was spent in the US and Canada on cash handling activities. The average cost of a cash transaction is 9.1% per transaction across retail segments. In contrast, credit and debit cards cost approximately only 1 to 2% per transaction. We urge you to vote ought not to pass on LD 1544 to protect consumers and small businesses. Thank you for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you, Representative Tepler. Are there any questions for Ms. Kennaboris? All right, seeing none, we'll hear from Steve Rauschenberger.
I do not see Steve on the call.
I don't either. Okay. I will next ask if there's anyone else who is present in our call who wishes to testify on the bill. Seeing no hands go up, I will close the hearing on LD 1544, and we are likely to schedule this for work session next week. And next we will open a hearing on LD 76, and we'll invite Representative Matheson to present her bill.
Go ahead. Appreciate it. Good morning, Senator Sanborn, Chair Sanborn and Tepler. And good morning to my esteemed fellow members of the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services Committee. You'll have to bear with me because this is my first testimony on my first bill, so I appreciate you understanding me being a little nervous. My name is Christy Matheson. I'm representative in District 1, the beautiful town of Kittery. I'm here to introduce LD 76, an act to amend the Dental Practice Act to define supervision and authorize teledentistry. LD 76 was submitted by the Maine Board of Dental Practice and reflects recommendations from several years of stakeholder discussions. This bill does the following. It aligns the definitions of supervision and authorized activities to reflect current practices. It amends delegation language and ultimately authorizes oral health care services and procedures to be provided through teledentistry in accordance with rules adopted by the board. During the 129th legislature, the board submitted a legislative report pursuant to Public Law 2018 C-388 that identified recommended changes to align statutory scopes of practice with current practice models, to redefine levels of supervision, and to identify the use of teledentistry. This January 31st, 2020 report was accepted into the HCIFS committee, and recommended statutory changes were reported out as a committee bill and printed as LD 2146. The committee did hold public hearings, they did conduct a work session, and the board worked very closely with the sponsor to make further amendments to the bill. Efforts were abruptly ended when the session ended, but during the summer of 2020, the board revived the efforts on LD 2146, given the demand for the authorized use of teledentistry during the pandemic. LD 76 is this critical piece of legislation. It not only allows dental professionals the flexibility needed to respond to the unique challenges during the pandemic, but two, the changing practices in which dental services are provided. Please note that the board did request an amendment to LD 76 to restore some existing languages in sections 12, number 2, C and D. And I think the committee has received those amended requests. There are 2 lines. Previously, as written, it removes dental hygienists' ability to apply some agents to teeth and under the general supervision of a dentist. The intent of the legislation was to remove duplicate language, but in doing so, it unintentionally restricted the dental hygiene scope of practice. So that's why the amendment was presented by the dental board. I hope the committee can offer its full support to LD 76. And there are others on this call that are in the dental board that might be able to answer technical questions, but I'm happy to take questions at this point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Matheson. And I will point out to the committee that Colleen has dropped the link to the amendment into the chat, but I'll just note that it's just an amendment to the bill. It doesn't replace the language of the bill. It sort of adds to the language of the bill. So there are several other sections that would remain as written and proposed in the original bill. Are there questions for Representative Matheson? All right, seeing none. Great job on your first presentation of a bill. And it's also only 10:34, so you have plenty of time. Great. Next we will hear from Penny Valancourt.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Valancourt. Go ahead.
Well, it's really a tough act to follow when Representative Matheson did such an incredible job. As you all know, this has been years in the making. But let me first just say thank you, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the committee. My name is Penny Valancourt. I'm the board's executive director. And fortunately, I don't have to go into that long history, but I am here to, on behalf of the board, to offer up full support. For some of you, you may recall during the last session that one of the last questions that was asked of me was whether or not teledentistry would help amid the pandemic. That was the last question. So I am just enthusiastic to bring this forward back to the committee. It's your own work. It's not perfect. We still want to do some added efforts to look at the RDH scope of practice, which will come up as part of testimony as part of another bill today. But again, if you have any questions of me, I just want to say thank you to Representative Matheson and to you all as committee members.
Are there questions for Ms. Valancourt? And I would just echo, this has been a very long time in the making. And so I'm glad to have it in front of us again today. Thank you, Ms. Valancourt. Next, we will hear from Angela Westoff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and distinguished members of the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services Committee. My name is Angela Westhoff. I serve as the Executive Director of the Maine Dental Association. The MDA represents about 85% of dentists in Maine, and we have 774 practicing and retired members. On behalf of the MDA, I'm pleased to provide testimony in support of LD 76. In the 129th legislature, I testified in support of a similar bill, LD 2146, which the committee passed unanimously. We had two board members, Dr. Brad Rand and Dr. Heather Keeling, who participated in the stakeholder process that was convened by the Board of Dental Practice. They reported that it was a very inclusive and productive process. Unfortunately, 2146 died when the legislature had to abruptly adjourn due to the pandemic, and it didn't reconvene. So here we are today. I'll spare you the definitions of teledentistry. I will upload some written testimony where we cite the American Dental Association's language on that. You can review that, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I would just say that the MDA further supports the committee amendment, which includes the dental hygienist scope of practice for the application of desensitizing agents to teeth and the application of fluoride to control caries. In conclusion, I think we can all agree that collaboration ensures the very best care for patients. The MDA looks forward to working together for future inclusive, thorough, and thoughtful stakeholder work groups. Thank you, and I urge you to support LD 76. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Westhoff. Are there questions for Ms. Westhoff? All right, seeing none, we'll hear from Barbara Covey. Good morning, Ms. Covey. You can activate your video if you can and go ahead.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah. And just pull together here. So Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and distinguished members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Barbara Covey, and I live in Oakland, Maine. I am an emergency department physician and a long-term board member of the Waterville Community Dental Center, a nonprofit dental center serving income-challenged residents of Central Maine for 21 years. I'm here today to speak in support of LD 76. To fully understand the importance of this legislation, we need to grasp the full potential of teledentistry, to recognize it as the versatile tool that it is. One well-understood model is the use of teledentistry to provide remote triage and management for patients with urgent dental needs. This can be and has been an important tool during the COVID pandemic. As an example of other ways this model can be helpful, I'd like to discuss another, the model of the virtual dental home. With the collaborative leadership of the Partnership of Children's Oral Health, Waterville Community Dental Center, and other partners in the state, including Head Start organizations, have been exploring this model. The model offers a means to reach out to our communities to improve access to oral health care, especially for rural, low-income, and other underserved residents. Pilot planning is in process for Head Start programs. In the VDH model, children receive services in community settings, in this case, local Head Start centers. Each child seen is enrolled in the dental home practice and receives exams, preventive care, and simple therapeutic services delivered at their centers by an independent or public health dental hygienist. Teledentistry technology is used to share information and images and coordinate care with the dentist at the dental home office. If more complex services are needed, the child has a secure dental home with access to full dental services by the dentist at the home office. The VDH model provides a means to deliver regular, patient-centered, preventive, and early interventional services in a local, family-friendly setting and in a manner that is more efficient and cost-effective than the traditional model of care. Moving care outside of the physical walls of the dental center also allows us to increase the total number of patients who can access services from the community. The VDH model is a potent tool for bringing dental services into our communities, an adjunct to the traditional in-office care. Its implementation, however, is not possible without the authorization of teledentistry provided in LD 76. Please support the passage of LD 76 so we can use these vital teledentistry tools to improve and expand oral health services in Maine. I thank you for the opportunity to speak about this important legislation and would be happy to answer any questions you might have now or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Representative Evans, go ahead.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I'm assuming just on the basis of what you described as far as the VDA aspect, that this is something that the patients and the families are receptive to.
Yes.
You think that seems to be increasing? I would expect that it would be increasing.
Yes, and in fact, we've already been providing Head Start services in Head Starts for 15 years or more. And what they see will barely change, but the model is discussed with them and they are aware of the process, and the feedback so far as we introduce this has been very good. We're also part of the process is that we're doing studies as we move along to judge the impact on the patients, the families, and their level of acceptance, so we can be sure this is indeed filling the needs of the children and families.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your testimony today. Next, we'll hear from Judith Feinstein.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
We can, go ahead.
Okay, it's a little bit like time travel, isn't it?
It is.
Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and distinguished members of the Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee. My name is Judy Feinstein. I serve as the coordinator of the Maine Oral Health Coalition. Founded over 20 years ago as the Maine Dental Access Coalition, we function as a broad network and maintain a close interest in policy and systems changes that can improve access to services and oral health status in Maine. The coalition supports LD 76 and the amendment, first for the changes it makes in the Dental Practice Act, and particularly the changes to the definitions of direct and general supervision that clarify what these mean relative to the activities that may be performed by the board's licensees. We think these changes will facilitate the ability of all dental professionals to practice at the tops of their respective scopes, training, and education. And second, we support LD 76 for adding to the Practice Act this definition of teledentistry, thereby authorizing oral health care services and procedures that can be provided through this new technology with the rules that the board will adopt shortly. We thank the board for its careful review and revision of the Practice Act. It has been a long time coming. Although you will or have already heard from others about the implication of these changes, I have some comments on adding that definition of teledentistry. In its 2019 white paper on teledentistry, aptly titled How Technology Can Facilitate Access to Care, the Association of State and Territorial Dental Directors concluded that, quote, teledentistry has the potential to be part of a paradigm shift in healthcare delivery that can play a key role in mitigating barriers and improving health for populations with traditionally poor access to dental care and oral health services. In the testimony that I submitted online, there's a live link to that paper. This past year's experience with COVID-19 brings that statement into a clear focus. This technology facilitates and enhances the delivery of efficient and cost-effective oral health care, particularly in delivering early intervention and preventive services for patients of all ages, and not only for populations with traditionally poor access, but for all of us in a rural state like Maine. The virtual dental home, which you just heard about, being tested by the Partnership for Children's Oral Health and the various Head Starts, I lost my place, really depends on teledentistry technology and is only one example. Head Starts have experienced significant challenges for years in meeting dental screening and exam requirements. and the virtual dental home will help relieve at least some of that burden. Gotcha, Senator, thank you. Again, we thank the board for its work, and we look forward to the rulemaking that will allow full implementation of the changes in the Practice Act and of teledentistry. We thank this committee for your consideration. We urge you to support LD 76. I have a feeling you will, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have, and I will plan to attend the work session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll next move on to Becca Matsuovich. Good morning, go ahead.
Good morning, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and distinguished members of the Committee on Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services. My name is Becca Matasovich, and I am Executive Director of the Partnership for Children's Oral Health. The partnership is a collaborative effort funded by philanthropic dollars to build a broad network of individuals and organizations to create a Maine where no child suffers from preventable dental disease. I'm here today to speak in support of LD 76. The partnership is working on improving and reforming our oral health systems from multiple angles. One element in this bill, the provision authorizing teledentistry, is a really key piece in this puzzle. When COVID-19 hit and dental offices had to be closed for all but emergency care, it quickly became evident why it's critical for dentists to be able to triage patients with urgent needs using teledentistry tools and technology. Throughout the pandemic, we've been supporting a group of nonprofit dental clinics who worked very hard to stay open and be a resource to address urgent dental needs among people who lacked what we call a dental home. These 5 nonprofit provider organizations collectively took thousands of calls during the first few months of the pandemic response. Due to the board's quick action to clarify the appropriate use of remote triage methods, dental providers were able to prioritize who needed to be seen in person and plan appropriate treatment, helping many people avoid unnecessary visits to the emergency room. However, while this is obviously a very important example of a use for teledentistry, it's only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the value that teledentistry can bring to our efforts to increase access to dental care across rural Maine. We are leading a collaborative project which began before COVID to pilot an innovative model called the virtual dental home, which relies on teledentistry as a core element of the design. Since you've heard a couple other speakers already mention this, I'll skip over the parts of my testimony about the, exactly how the virtual dental home works, but I'm happy to answer questions about it. We have dental centers and early childhood programs already lined up across 9 Maine counties to launch this pilot. We thought we would start small, but the demand has been so significant that people are trying to add themselves to the pilot, and it has really taken off much faster than we even predicted. These partners are preparing to implement this model as soon as the appropriate authorization and board rules are in place. We'd hoped that this would happen last spring, but obviously COVID delayed a lot of things from a lot of perspectives. I was very excited to see the emergency status of LD 76, and we're hoping that the board will be able to implement the rulemaking process quickly, as I know that they are eager to do. Thank you for your support. I'm happy to answer questions or bring any additional information to the work session.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, I would next call on Bonnie Vaughn, but I don't see her in the meeting. So I will ask if there's anyone else in the meeting who wishes to testify in favor of the bill. And seeing none, I will call Lorraine Klug in opposition to the bill. Good morning, Ms. Klug, go ahead. You're on mute, so you'll need to unmute.
Is that better?
It is, thanks.
Thank you. Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Lorraine Klug, and I'm President and Legislative Chair of the Maine Dental Hygienists Association. I'm speaking today in opposition of LD 76 unless changes are made. I would first like to state that we are addressing some issues that were addressed back in 2016 with the first repeal and replace effort proposed by the Maine Board of Dental Practice, and again in 2018. I gave testimony in March of 2016 to not remove the definition of teledentistry that was already in our Practice Act that was proposed, and now we are putting it back in when it shouldn't have been removed. I gave testimony also about removing the list of what dental assistants' duties are, and that was changed. The list was remained and was changed to unlicensed persons. The existing statutory list was developed via the rulemaking process and was placed into the Practice Act as a result of the repeal and replace effort in 2016. This legislation tries to remove that list again, and we oppose that. We strongly believe that the unsupervised person should have a list of duties and not just rely on what the dentist delegate on what is custom and usage. What exactly is custom and usage? Most of our licensed persons are not formally trained and learn on the job. They only know what they know from what training they get in the office. Shouldn't they have a list of what they can refer to for what they are allowed to do, just like all the other licensees in the Practice Act? And I'm going to skip over the rest of that in a matter of time. But we do think that the dental assistants need to leave their list of duties in the Practice Act. The expanded function dental assistant scope of practice has been changed to general supervision from direct supervision. An EFTA is a restorative assistant who works directly with the dentist, so they should remain under direct supervision. They can't place a restoration unless the dentist prepares the tooth, so that is rather difficult to do unless the dentist is in the office and they are working under direct supervision. So we recommend that their scope change. We thought this was going to be changed by the board. We would also like to keep the original language of the EFTA that the dentist or hygienist first determines that they are free of tartar, and I also thought that this was going to be an amendment from the board. There are also some other items. Okay.
So, Ms. Klug, are your concerns captured in your written testimony?
Yes, they are.
Okay,
and there were
great.
3 items on here, like I said, that I thought that the board discussed at their last meeting that were going to be put in the amendment, but from what I saw in the amendment, only one of those is, so I'm wondering where the other 2 items were.
Okay,
So,
and those other 2 items are listed in your written
yes, ma'am.
testimony. Okay, great. I want to assure you that our analysts will help us to pull those 2 items out of your written testimony, make sure that we ask about them in advance of the work session. And Ms. Westhoff and Ms. Valancourt are still listening, and they can provide us with some written feedback on that in advance of the work session so that we're sure that we don't miss anything as a committee. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for presenting your testimony today. Is there anyone else in the hearing room who wishes to testify on this bill? Please raise your electronic hand at this time. Seeing none, I will close the hearing on LD 76.
Excuse me, Senator.
And
I just
go
I do
ahead,
see
Colleen.
Bonnie Vaughn here. I didn't know.
Oh,
if
you
wanted
do?
to recognize her now. Yeah.
Oh, there she is. Yep. Okay, great. We can bring Ms. Vaughn in to testify. Good morning, Ms. Vaughn. Good morning, Ms. Vaughn. Can you hear us? You can unmute and begin. Good morning. If you would turn off your YouTube, that would be most helpful for us. So we don't get...
I'm hearing several voices going on at the same time, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can hear you. You need to turn off your YouTube link.
YouTube link?
You're listening to the hearing and it's delayed on YouTube, so it's a bit confusing.
Is it button? Oh, shut this off. I may have lost you. Oops.
No, you're
better?
still there. Yep.
Okay.
I think you
Okay.
can go ahead now.
Good morning, Senator Sanborn and Representative Teplin and members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I'm Bonnie Vaughn. I'm a dental hygienist, and I've been in the state for many years. You've heard about the history of LD 2146 and transition to LD 76. So I firmly support the teledentistry portion of the bill, and you've heard the history of that and the virtual Head Start program. I think that's obviously something we desperately need at this point in the pandemic and moving ahead. The portion that I really think we should go back and review is a delegation of authority. As you all know, we have dentists, therapists, hygienists, public health hygienists, independent hygienists, and now dental therapists. I think we need a stronger description of which each of these professions do. The general and direct supervision seems fine, but when we start looking at the dental assistant who has no permit, no license, is on the job trained, we need more direction. Should definitely be direct supervision. The same thing for the expanded function dental assistant. That is a restorative assistant that works directly with the dentist, so general supervision really doesn't apply. We also have to be careful of dental polishing with the expanded function assistant. We want to make sure that that dental polishing is not a registered dental hygienist polishing. So there are a few of these things that I think we could benefit by reviewing again to make sure that everybody understands what their duties are, either under direct or general. Otherwise, I support the bill and I would just like more clarification on those things. Thank you for your time. I'd be glad to attend the workshop session and answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Are there any questions for Ms. Vaughn? Representative Arford.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Vaughn, for being with us. Just one quick question. As a new legislator, I'm not as aware of the history of this bill. You seem to be very knowledgeable. So quick question is, was the telemedicine aspect of this bill in the original version, well, at least in the previous version from the 129th legislature, or is this a new section of the bill, which is primarily a product of what was experienced during COVID and delivering telemedicine services?
No, I think this telemedicine part is the same as it was in the beginning. It's the revision on the general and the direct supervision, I think, has been condensed, maybe is the best way to word it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no further questions for Ms. Vaughn, I will again close the hearing on LD 76. We thank you for joining us. And next, I'm going to hand the gavel over to Representative Tepler. We're going to take up LD 1120 next. And so I will let my co-chair drive the train for a bit.
Thank you, Senator Sanborn. And we are opening a public hearing on LD 1120, and we will invite the bill's sponsor, Senator Timberlake, to join us in the panel and present his bill. Welcome, Senator Timberlake.
And good morning, Representative. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'll get right to it for you.
Thank you.
Senator Sanborn, Representative Templer, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee of Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I am Jeff Timberlake. I represent Senate District 22, which includes the towns of Durham, Greene, Leeds, Lisbon, Litchfield, Sabattis, Turner, Wales, and Wayne. It's my pleasure to be here to present LD 1120, an act to allow dentists to receive continuing education credits for uncompensated volunteer work. At the request of a local dentist, I submit this proposal. Following a conversation about volunteering services, I agreed it makes sense that dentists should be able to receive up to 8 hours per year volunteering their time, particularly in the underserved areas of the state. I find it interesting that some will claim that this is contrary to the fact of the spirit of volunteerism. I find that if we can get more people served in the underserved areas by giving them credit for volunteering, I feel that we do nothing but benefit the people of the state of Maine. Years ago, dentists needed to attend a conference or seminar to receive continuing education credits to retain their licenses. Today, the internet is widely open the opportunities for them to learn about new techniques, restorative materials, and virtual attendance workshops. However, allowing dentists to receive credits for uncompensated volunteer work seems to be a win-win situation for everyone, most importantly for the patient. It's prime time now to address the needs of the dental patient, particularly after a long period of folks going without care because of shuttered dental offices. The pandemic resulted in many people not being able to take care of dental matters and routine care. You can imagine this is even more prevalent in our rural communities. Other states across the nation offer continuing education credits for volunteerism, which certainly helps with access to care. Without obtaining adequate care, costs are then shifted to hospitals where patients go for emergency care. What happens here? Though it's basically a Band-Aid for treating symptoms, namely pain, and not treating the underlying cause of the problem, which is the needs to be done through an examination by a dentist. Also, over the last year, we all know a large portion of our population lost their jobs along with dental insurance. It is my hope that this legislation will provide access for Mainers who struggle to get the appropriate dental care, and dentists will be eager to offer their services while at the same time receiving credit. As I said earlier, this is a win-win situation. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and I'll answer any questions that I can.
Are there any questions from the committee for Senator Timberlake? Yes, Senator Brenner, please go ahead.
Thank you, and good morning, Senator Timberlake. It's nice to see you. I really appreciate the spirit of this piece of legislation to encourage volunteerism by dentists, but I think I'm a little anxious about using continuing education as a vehicle for that to happen, because I guess I worry about dentists not being, not fully appreciating changes in practice and new ideas and updating their knowledge base. So I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, thank you, Senator Brenner, and it's good to see you. And I'll do my best. As I said, I'm presenting this for a friend who's a dentist, and as I understand it, they're taking seminars all the time anyway. And what they're looking for is if they could get some credit for when they're doing the volunteer work on, you know, for in our rural areas or anywhere as far as that goes, to people that are in need, and we can help people. I think it's a good idea, but I don't have the answers to everything here. And I'm presenting a bill that I've done some research, and I thought if we could make it better for people and get more dental help out there to the people in need, I thought it was the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Timberlake. I sort of have the same concerns as Senator Brenner just mentioned. The first question that I would ask is, what is the number of CME credits required for license renewal each 2 years?
Representative Evans, thank you for the question, but I'd have to get back to you. I don't have a clue. You know, I don't know how many credit it takes a year. I don't know what they need. It was a conversation we was having as a dentist. The dentist I was talking to, they volunteer their time and said it would be really good if we could get something out of the volunteering, and they're not going to stop volunteering if this doesn't pass. But they was looking for a way that it might get more dentists to volunteer their time to do this practice. And so I figured if we could find a way that encouraged dentists that weren't volunteering their time to do more volunteering, that it would just help out our communities. And that's what I'm trying to do. I don't have a clue. I'm not an expert on what dentists, you want to know how to grow apples? I'm really good at that. But if you want me to pull your teeth, you want to hang on, because I'm going to use a Leatherman, and you know, it ain't gonna be pretty, but you know, that's not what I do.
I think we can rely, Representative Evans, on some of the later speakers who work with the Board of Dentistry to answer the question for you. And if not, I'm sure we can get an answer for the work session.
I would agree with you.
Thank you. So thank you, Representative Evans. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony, Senator Timberlake. And I'm looking to our attendees in the call to see if there's anyone else who would like to testify in favor of the bill. And if you would like to testify in favor, please raise your electronic hand. Seeing none, I will turn to those testifying in opposition to the bill. And first I will call Ms. Valancourt from the Board of Dental Practice. Welcome, Ms. Valancourt.
Thank you. Good morning, Representative Tepler and members of the committee. My name is Penny Valancourt. I'm the Executive Director of the board, and I'm here to offer testimony on behalf of the board in opposition. And again, it may sound harsh, but that's truly not the intent. The board truly recognizes the spirit in which volunteerism occurs in Maine, and more particularly within the dental community. So its opposition is not intended to portray a negative impact on those efforts at all. However, historically, the board has worked with the committee such that the committee has given the board the authority through its rulemaking to identify the areas of content necessary to ensure ongoing clinical competencies for all groups of licensees. Under its current rule, there is an incredible amount of flexibility given to dental professionals to obtain a variety of activities using a variety of mediums, whether it be online, in-person, home study. Specifically, dentists are required to do 40 hours of continuing education every 2 years. Within those 40 hours, the legislature has only mandated content with regard to the opioid training. So those are 3 hours that are required out of the 40. If a dentist holds a sedation permit, they have to do an additional 6 hours. If they have an existing life support certification, they can claim an additional 3 hours. The remaining balance can be made and completed in a variety of ways, as mentioned earlier. So the board just hopes that the committee would continue to sort of defer the content areas to the board through its rulemaking process. The board historically, through the rulemaking, has not accepted volunteer hours. Again, not because it doesn't support the efforts, but it's just not, the board has concluded, just not consistent with requiring ongoing clinical skills to maintain a license. Again, I'd be happy to provide more information now or at work session.
Questions from the committee for Ms. Valancourt? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony, Ms. Valancourt, and for reminding us of the history of this committee's involvement in CEU content.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. And next we'll call Ms. Westhoff of the Maine Dental Association.
Good morning, Representative Tepler, Senator Sanborn, and distinguished members of the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Angela Westhoff, and I serve as the Executive Director, excuse me, of the Maine Dental Association. We represent about 85% of the dentists in Maine. On behalf of the MDA, I'm testifying respectfully in opposition to LD 1120. While we certainly appreciate the sponsor's intent, the fact of the matter is that a significant percentage of Maine dentists provide free or reduced care to patients in need. The questions before us today are: one, how and who will track, verify, and account for free care provided by dentists? And two, is a benefit in the form of continuing education credit necessary? While the MDA does not, as a matter of course, track charity care, the following are a few recent examples. In fiscal year 2019-2020, 28 of MDA member dentists participated in a national program called the Dental Lifeline Network, or more commonly known as Maine's Donated Dental Services Program. And the national average for volunteerism is just 19%. So that's 168 Maine dentists and 21 dental labs that have provided more than $5.3 million in donated services to more than 1,500 individuals with disabilities who are elderly or defined as medically fragile and cannot afford or otherwise access treatment for severe dental conditions. That program is funded in part by Maine DHHS, Northeast Delta Dental Foundation, and a program called Dancing with the Dentists. For every $1 spent supporting the volunteers, $5.76 worth of care is donated. In addition, the MDA asked its members in December of 2020 as part of our regular membership survey, what type of charity care do you provide to your patients who cannot afford dental treatment, and what is the estimated annual value of free care provided? Of the 231 respondents to our survey, there were an aggregate total of 118 respondents to that particular question. The total was 2.4 million. That averages to $20,348 per respondent on an annual basis. I believe it's also important to note that among the American Dental Association's 5 principles of ethics is beneficence, or the term do good for the patient and the public at large. By and large, Maine dentists are small business owners, and they're people in small towns. And like most small business people in Maine, they find ways to help their neighbors. To my knowledge, no other state licensing boards allocate a value to uncompensated care in lieu of continuing education credits. And thank you for your time and your attention, and I'd be happy to answer questions now or at your work session.
Thank you for staying under the 3-minute limit, Ms. Westhoff. I will look to see if the committee has any questions for Ms. Westhoff. Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. And I will turn to Lorraine Klug, also speaking in opposition to the bill.
Yes, good morning again, Senator Sanborn, Representative Templer, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Lorraine Klug, President of the Maine Dental Hygienists Association. I am speaking in opposition. Continuing education is important to stay up to date on the latest in patient care so we can all better serve and be equipped to serve our patients. Volunteer work is also important to benefit yourself and your community, but that's what it is. It's volunteering. Continuing education is not a hardship, and there are so many courses that you can take today, even online, that qualify under our existing statutes. I encourage you to keep continuing education standards high in the state of Maine for the betterment of our patients. Currently, dentists have to have 40 continuing education credits every 2 years, and dental hygienists have 30 continuing education credits every 2 years. Having said that, if this bill passes, I believe it's only fair to extend that benefit to all licensees and not just dentists, although we really don't think it should pass. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Klug. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And I have no one else listed testifying in opposition or neither for nor against the bill. Is there anyone on the call, on the Zoom call, who wishes to testify on LD 1120? Please raise your electronic hand. Seeing none, I will bring the hearing on LD 1120 to a close and ask Senator Sanborn if she wishes to take the gavel back.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll next turn to LD 1457 because I see the sponsor, Representative Grahowski, has joined us. So we'll invite her to join us in our meeting and present her bill. Good morning, go ahead.
Good morning, thank you. It's always fun to be in that weird time period where you're not sure what's being said about you.
We call it the wormhole. So
A
welcome to
wormhole,
the
I
other
like
side
that.
of it. Mhm.
That matches very well with an EUT. We say beam someone over or across. We don't say up or down because people are a little bit offended by what that meant to be in or out. So good morning, all. Good to see you and be with you again. Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I am Nicole Grahowski, and I represent the communities of Ellsworth and Trenton in the main house. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in support of LD 1457, an act to improve access to dental hygiene by authorizing dental hygienists to perform dental hygiene diagnosis. I'd like to start by thanking your committee analysts for helping me sort out some drafting errors, which have been corrected in the amendment she has circulated in advance of this hearing. My testimony pertains to that amendment. There are two specific changes this bill seeks to make to the scope of practice for hygienists. First is to add dental hygiene diagnosis to the scope for dental hygienists, independent practice dental hygienists, and public health dental hygienists. And the second is that for dental hygienists only, this bill would move the administration of local anesthesia from being directly supervised by a dentist to being generally supervised by a dentist. Local anesthesia can only be administered by dental hygienists and faculty dental hygienists who have the authority to administer it according to the licensure qualifications in statute. And that I included that section in my testimony for your reference. The first of these changes is a common sense change. As written, dental hygiene diagnosis means the identification of an existing oral health problem that a dental hygienist is qualified and licensed to treat. If hygienists actively treat a specific problem, they probably take notice of what exactly they're treating in order to do so effectively. It would follow logically that they would also be capable of identifying such a problem that they are treating outright. Beyond that logic, hygienists are specifically trained in nationally accredited schools to diagnose and then treat certain oral health problems that are within their scope. In fact, dental hygiene diagnosis is defined identically in this bill as in the Commission on Dental Accreditation, or CODA's, Dental Hygiene Education Standards. By way of example, I recently had my teeth x-rayed at a routine visit to the dentist's office. My hygienist looked at the x-rays and identified a pre-cavity area on a tooth. We discussed how I could change my chocolate nibbling habits, which have been exacerbated by all the Zoom meetings, to help prevent further decay. And she also recommended a special prescription toothpaste. The dentist later stopped by for a quick check-in and agreed with the hygienist's assessment, AKA diagnosis. I'm sure the dentist would have seen the same issue on the x-ray had the hygienist not pointed it out, but it was helpful to me to have more time to discuss which of my habits had changed and how to address the problem than a quick check-in affords. I think it is a better use of the dentist's time to focus on more complex diagnoses that are outside of the hygienist training scope. Also, I'd like to share that a few years back, I had a serious issue with gum recession that was ultimately corrected by grafting. It was my hygienist who identified the issue, not my dentist. I don't think this circumstance was the result of anything but the fact that the hygienist spends an hour with me in the chair and the dentist spends 2 to 3 minutes. Hygienists who identify or diagnose such issues bring them to the attention of dentists. That's part of their job. To switch gears, the second change the bill proposes would increase the level of care that patients could receive when the dentist is out of the office. Local anesthesia is necessary to provide a reasonable standard of care for some tasks that hygienists are authorized to do. They are very well trained to administer local anesthesia, as you will learn from later testimony, and they have been administering it successfully in Maine since 1997. 10 states allow dental hygienists to perform local anesthesia under general dentist supervision with no issue. These changes to the scope of practice for dental hygienists will help more Mainers safely access oral health care and improve our oral health outcomes. The Maine CDC reported that from 2011 to 2016, for adults aged 20 to 64 years who have at least one tooth, that the average number of teeth was 25.5. Do you know how many teeth you should have if your wisdom teeth are removed? I admittedly had to look it up. The answer is 28. Think of how many people must be missing more than 3 teeth in order to average with those of us who are lucky to have all of our teeth. Additionally, 2% of Maine adults in this age range have no teeth at all. Fortunately, these numbers have improved since the 1999 to 2004 time period of study, but we must do better. We need every person working in the oral health field in Maine to be working at their fully trained potential, especially those working in our underserved and rural areas. I respectfully ask this committee to support this bill as amended and not delay with the stakeholder group, whose members will debate, based on their own self-interests, what is already clearly laid out in the educational standards of the nationally accredited institutions that train dental hygienists. I want to thank you so much for listening attentively to my testimony in support of LD 1457, and I would be happy to answer any questions that I can at this time.
Thank you, Representative Grahowski. Are there any questions for the sponsor of the bill? All right, seeing none, we will once again hear from Ms. Klug. Good morning again. Go ahead.
Good morning again, Senator Sanborn, Representative Templer, and members of the committee. Again, my name is Lorraine Klug. I'm President and Legislative Chair of the Maine Dental Hygienists Association, speaking in favor of LD 1457. We would like to expand our scope to include the administration of local under general, and rather than direct supervision. Like Representative Grahowski said, there are currently 10 states that allow this procedure, and this would increase care when the dentist is out of the office and allow the dental hygiene schools to still teach and supervise students while administering local when they don't have a dentist present at the school. In the interest of time, I am not going to go over the education that is all in my written testimony, and it details what courses a dental hygienist has to take and the training involved in that. And the benefit to the way general supervision works is that the dentist who is supervising still has the ultimate control over whether the hygienist can perform local when he or she is out of the office. If they don't want the dental hygienist to do this procedure, then they cannot do it. They have to still have the permission of the dentist. We are also asking for a definition for dental hygiene diagnosis, which I also addressed in testimony in 2018. The CODA definition is the identification of an existing oral health problem that a dental hygienist is qualified and licensed to treat. We get so caught up in the term diagnosis, but it is defined as the art of identifying disease from its signs or symptoms. In other words, diagnosis is both a process and its outcome. Without the process of diagnosis, a treatment plan is not possible. Dentists focus on diagnosing and treating those conditions in which they are educated and licensed in the same manner that the dental hygienist diagnose and provide care within their scope of education and license. Dentists and hygienists work collaboratively as part of the oral health care team, and the dental hygiene diagnosis is complementary to the dental diagnosis. A hygienist spends a whole appointment with the patient and brings concerns to the attention of the dentist, who is examining the patient for mere minutes and expects us to bring our dental hygiene diagnosis to their attention. Our statutes should reflect this and have a definition for dental hygiene diagnosis. The Board of Dental Practice, from what I recall at their last meeting, is not going to support this bill and ask for a stakeholders process and report back and recommend changes to the RDH scope of practice. We welcome that process, but that shouldn't prevent us from going forward with this bill to allow local anesthesia under general supervision and a definition for dental hygiene diagnosis. The way we have expanded our scope of practice is, through legislation. So that's always what we have had to do to expand. So I thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, I will answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Klug. Pardon me, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Ms. Klug. Are you making a distinction between IM injections versus nitrous oxide?
The bill, but there was an amendment to not include nitrous oxide.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we thank you for joining us again this morning, and I
Thank you.
will next call on Bonnie Vaughn. Good morning again, Ms. Vaughn. Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Sanborn and Representative Teplin and members of the committee. I think both of the previous speakers have identified the issue. I'll just focus in on the dental hygiene diagnosis. There are two other states that do have this, Oregon and Colorado. In Colorado's statute says it means the identification of an existing oral health problem of the dental hygienist is qualified and licensed to treat within the scope of dental hygiene practice. So I think we're just looking at those issues that we've been trained to identify, normal versus abnormal. And as I said, it's recognized in two other states that I know of, Oregon and Colorado. Attached to my written testimony, there is an Appendix A from the American Dental Hygiene Association that describing the dental hygiene diagnosis from the American Dental Hygiene Association. There are also codes, we call them the ADA codes, that would call for an assessment or screening of a patient. So what we would be doing would fall under those codes. I'll also refer back to the two bills that we just spoke about, the LD 2146 and now the LD 76. On page 4 and 6 of those bills, under the scope of dental hygienist general supervision, there is a description under X. It says perform oral inspections recording all conditions that should be called to the attention of the dentist. So essentially, we're putting another name on that item that we are supposed to do in those two LDs. So I just wanted to focus on that part. Be glad to take any questions, and I look forward to the work session. Thank you for your time and interest.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Are there any questions for Ms. Vaughn? All right, seeing none, I will ask if there's anyone else in the meeting. Oh, I didn't see you. Sorry, Representative Arford, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Chair. And again, thank you, Madam Vaughn, for being with us. General supervision, am I correct in assuming that that means the dentist would be present? We just, an earlier testifier addressed when dentist was, what supervision meant in terms of a dentist being present at the time that the service was rendered. Is that what that alludes to, the term general supervision?
General usually means that the hygienist or provider can function under the scope of practice under the direction of the dentist, but they may not be in the building at the time. But they have pre-approved the services that are being given under general supervision.
And ultimately, who is responsible for the delivery of that service? Is it the hygienist or is it the supervising dentist, whether or not they're in the room?
Would you repeat that question for me?
I'm just curious, who is ultimately, if the patient had an issue with the service, who would ultimately be responsible for the quality of the service? Would it be the supervising dentist, or would it be the hygienist, or would it be both? I'm just curious.
Ultimately, it's both, but the dentist is a supervising professional in the practice. So yes, that would be the first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are there additional questions? Okay, seeing none, I will ask if there's anyone else in our meeting who wishes to testify in favor of the bill. Seeing no hands go up, we'll next turn to those who wish to testify in opposition to the bill, and I'll call on Ms. Valancourt. Good morning again, Ms. Valancourt. Go ahead.
Good morning again. Thank you, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, members of the committee. My name is Penny Valancourt. I'm the board's executive director. And on behalf of the board, I am presenting information on LD 1457 in opposition. However, after listening to testimony and your questions of those who are testifying, it may be helpful for me to just give you a couple more points to help clarify. First, the board and its stakeholder process has been reviewing scopes of practice of every licensee of the board over the last 6 years. And in fact, its efforts has been to move away from listing procedure types and moving towards principles of practice, to which the RDH scope and what you're hearing today really wants to align to those national principles of practice. The board actually 4 years ago reported out a recommendation to the committee to adopt that principle of practice. So this is not anything new. So I would just want to convey to you, the board remains committed to further examining the RDH scope, but to do it in a narrow silo with just one term, you're missing the bigger picture. I think this committee needs to hear from that stakeholders to say, here's the dental team again at the table. How do you best refine the scopes of practice to, number one, reflect current and competent practice being educated and brought forward through the academic component, reflects current safety precautions, so that we can give you an informed decision on how best to proceed. The board is not objecting to any efforts to further this dialogue, but just not in this way. It is with blinders on. No one has had the opportunity to sit down and have a discussion with the Maine Dental Hygiene Association about these efforts. And the second piece, honestly, is public protection. That is the mission and the requirement of the board. Nothing is more serious than the use of certain medications without the proper protocols and safety mechanisms in place. The board investigates cases involving the use of local anesthesia. It is serious when you have a compromised patient with a medical history such that the uses of those are contraindicated and can result in serious medical adverse events. So whatever information you need from the committee or from the board, I'm happy to bring forward either at work session, but just urge you to pause and let the board report back to you on this. This is the same effort you asked us to report back to you a year ago, and we were committed to do it. The pandemic hit. So please allow us to come back to you, work with Lorraine Klug and the other 130 members of her association, as well as the entire licensee pool of 1,500, to bring you back something, again, that removes those procedures, but really captures the essence of a hygiene practice, which is the principles of practice. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions now or at work session.
Representative Tepler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here, Ms. Valancourt. I'm wondering, given the desperate need for dental care in Maine in general, let alone in particular areas of the state, how far are we from getting to a place where these practices, which it sounds like are part of the national RDH scope, are accepted in Maine?
I think that is the work of the stakeholder. I think there's an assumption that they're not being allowed to do it. I think we need to collect information saying it is happening, and here are the best models under which it can occur. But the first step is to get LD 76 passed so we can align the supervision to then have the next step. This has been I'm going to call it from the transportation project management. It has to be a phased approach. The first phase is get 76 in place, then let the board come back to you and say, here's the rest of the piece. But a delay in that is not going to impact the delivery of care and how it gets cared. It's really teledentistry. That's the key here, and to fully utilize the levels of supervision with that dental team member today. Okay. So the board does not believe this is a delay in getting care to people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there additional questions for Ms. Valancourt? Seeing none, we'll hear from Ms. Westhoff again. Good morning, Ms. Westhoff. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the committee. I am still Angela Westoff, the Executive Director of the Maine Dental Association. On behalf of the MDA, I am providing testimony in opposition to LD 1457. While we appreciate the sponsor's clarifying amendment, without additional information and collaborative discussion on dental hygiene diagnosis, we cannot support this bill. In researching LD 1457, we find only 2 states, Colorado and Oregon, where dental hygiene diagnosis is found in statute. Over the last several years, the Board of Dental Practice has sought input from licensees throughout its extensive stakeholder process. Today, we're witnessing some of the results of those efforts and other pieces of legislation. We respectfully request that a similar collaborative effort be undertaken with regard to dental hygiene diagnosis. Thank you for your time and attention. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Westoff? Seeing none, we thank you for joining us again this morning. And are there any other folks in the Zoom meeting who wish to testify on this bill? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing on LD 1457. And we will go right into the next bill, which is LD 25. An act to modify the qualifications for resident dentist licensure, brought to us by Senator Brenner.
All right, let me get organized here. Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and honorable colleagues of the Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee. I'm Stacy Brenner, and I represent Senate District 30, which includes Gorham, most of Scarborough, and part of Buxton. I'm here today to introduce LD 25, an act to modify the qualifications for resident dentist licensure. I was asked to introduce this legislation by the Board of Dental Practice, which has been working with the legislature to streamline the licensure process and break down existing barriers for the past several years. LD 25 is a continuation of those efforts. Specifically, this bill seeks to address barriers that have gotten in the way of dental students who wish to do their residencies in Maine. LD 25 would remove those barriers by allowing the board to consider on a case-by-case basis an applicant for dentist resident who earned a dental degree equivalent to a doctoral degree in dentistry. The bill would also change the requirement for passage of both the national and regional examinations, and instead only require passage of the board's jurisprudence examination. Thank you for your time, and I would mention that a representative from the board is here to speak in more detail to this bill and its necessity.
Thank you, Senator Brenner. Are there questions for our colleague? Seeing none, I will call Dr. Jakowski, maybe is how you say his name. And so we'll invite him to join us.
Okay, I apologize.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you to the committee. Good morning, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Mark Zakowski. I'm a private practice oral and maxillofacial surgeon in South Portland, and I currently serve as chair of the Board of Dental Practice. Thanks for the opportunity to provide testimony on LD 25. As you know, the board is a professional licensing board affiliated with the Department of Professional and Financial Regulation, and our sole purpose is to protect the public health and welfare of Maine citizens. We accomplish this mission by ensuring the public is served by competent and honest practitioners through the licensure process, investigations and allegations of unprofessional conduct, and imposing sanctions when deemed appropriate. LD 25 is submitted by the board to basically further streamline licensure qualifications in its statute and rules by removing barriers to otherwise qualified applicants. Specifically, it would amend the educational requirements by authorizing the board to consider the equivalent of a DDS on a case-by-case basis for those who did not graduate from a CODA accredited dental school. This authority allows us to consider those applicants seeking to obtain the resident licensure status and to obtain clinical supervised experience in some of our most underserved areas. It also amends the examination language to make clear that the only examination requirement is the board's jurisprudence examination. Under the current regulations, both the national and regional examinations for dentistry are required. There are some dental residents that are attempting to qualify for access to those examinations by virtue of completing these residency programs we're trying to grant them status for. Again, it's an unnecessary requirement given the restrictions of the resident license to practice under supervision of a dentist in the board approved setting. So in other words, these folks have already graduated from a dental school. They're only here to provide transient care under the supervision of dentists in the guises of their programs, and it removes those barriers. We've been working with a number of stakeholders, such as educational institutions, dental clinics, FQHCs, all of whom have indicated the value of bringing these students to Maine, not only to obtain their training, but to serve the underserved population. In addition, we're also working with dental students who wish to begin their residency training in Maine this summer, but don't meet the CODA accreditation requirements or the national and regional examination. Their options right now are either to forego their advanced training in Maine or try to get licensure in another state and gain licensure by reciprocity. Simply put, we remove the barriers to licensure here while maintaining the authority to consider and evaluate applications on a case-by-case basis and uphold the statutory mandate to protect the public.
Thank you, Dr. Zukowski. Representative Evans, go ahead.
Thank you. Just for clarification, you acknowledge, I think you mentioned that these individuals have already completed dental school, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none, we'll next hear from Angela Westoff.
Good morning.
Good morning again.
Hello, Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the committee. My name is Angela Westoff. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Dental Association. On behalf of the MDA, I'm pleased to provide testimony in support of LD 25, an act to modify the qualifications for resident dentist licensure. As you've heard, this bill removes existing barriers and ensures that individuals who have earned their doctoral degree and are pursuing advanced general dentistry training may participate in residency programs in various practice settings in Maine. Additionally, for many years, resident dentists from NYU spend a week in Washington County providing free dental care to countless children and people in need. We believe this is an important bill, and we urge you to vote ought to pass. Thank you for your time and attention. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Westoff. Are there any questions for Ms. Westoff? Representative Tepler, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick question, Ms. Westhoff, any chance we could get the NYU students to spend 2 weeks in Maine?
It's worth a shot. Maybe if we offer them a lobster dinner. I'm not sure.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? Is there anyone additionally in the Zoom meeting who wishes to testify on this bill? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing on LD 25 and ask for Senator Brenner to present the next bill, which is LD 26.
All right, let me just shift around here. I know I have it down here somewhere.
While she's looking for her testimony, I will direct the committee that there is an amendment also for this bill in our electronic files, and I can drop a link to it into our chat.
I'm about to do that.
Oh, Colleen's got it.
Yeah.
All right. Senator
Go ahead, Senator Brenner.
Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and honorable colleagues, I'm still Stacey Brenner, and I'm here today to introduce LD 26, an act to allow a dentist to administer botulism, toxin, and dermal fillers. I was asked to introduce this technical legislation by the Board of Dental Practice. LD 26 would move a board rule into statute that limits dentists' scope of practice when utilizing botulinum toxins or Botox and dermal filler products. The rule was repealed last April with the intention of putting it into statute to protect the public. This bill also specifies the allowable uses of Botox by dentists. I understand there is an amendment coming, but I would ask that you hold your questions on it for the board representative who is here with us today. I am not an expert in Botox. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brenner. Are there any questions for Senator Brenner? I hoped not. Okay, great. So we will instead hear again from Dr. Zakowicz.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Sanborn. In the interest of time, I will skip the introduction. I'm still Mark Zakowski. I'm still the chair of the dental board. So this LD 26 is basically a technical proposal submitted as we identified in the government evaluation report dated on November 1st, 2019. It places into statute the language authorizing a dentist to use Botox and dermal fillers when supported by a patient's diagnosed dental condition or as part of their dental treatment. It also amends the Dental Practice Act to include as unprofessional conduct a dentist who utilizes the products on a patient for a non-dental condition or treatment. By way of background, the former rule governing unprofessional conduct limited the scope of practice when using Botox and dermal filler products. This was repealed and replaced on April 5th of 2020 with the intent to place this particular portion into statute as opposed to rules. So there's also an amendment as presented, clarifies the permissible use of those products specific to conditions treated by a dentist who completed specialty training in oral and maxillofacial surgery, and that's necessary to avoid restricting the existing practice of oral and maxillofacial surgeons. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I'd be happy to answer questions either now or at the work session.
Are there any questions for Dr. Zakowski? All right, seeing none, we'll next hear from Angela Westoff.
Hello again.
Hello, go ahead.
Thank you. Senator Sanborn, Representative Tepler, and members of the committee. I'm Angela Westoff, the Executive Director of the Maine Dental Association, representing 85% of Maine's dentists. I will be incredibly brief. We wanted to just be on record as supporting LD 26. As noted by the Board of Dental Practice, the bill is technical in nature and moves language from board rule into statute. The language, as amended, further clarifies the authority of oral surgeons with regard to administering Botox or dermal fillers, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can now or for the work session.
Great. Are there any questions for Ms. Westoff? All right. Seeing none, I will ask if there's anyone else in our Zoom meeting who wishes to testify on this bill. And seeing no hands go up, I'll close the public hearing on LD 26. Okay, that actually completes a good chunk of our work for today. We had 6 public hearings in a record under 2 hours this morning, so appreciate the expediency. It leaves us in a bit of an odd position. We had not loaded up too much on the work sessions for today, but we also, I have to present a bill very shortly in another committee. So we are going to take an hour-long lunch, and we'll come back. We'll do the work session, and we have 2 language reviews to go over as well. But it should be a short day. We have 4 language reviews to do.
I got 2
Great.
more
That's wonderful.
while we had our hearing, so we might as well do those as well.
Great. So we'll get some bills ready to get out of the committee. We're whittling our way through those 100 that we had left a couple of weeks ago. So with that, we will stand adjourned until 12:50. and we'll come back and complete our work at that point. Thanks, everybody. All right, it is 12:50. We'll just wait for some more of our colleagues to join us before we get started again. Okay. Josh, do you expect any more folks from your caucus?
I do expect Representative Quint, and I think Representative Bly. Yeah, he's here. Okay.
He's here.
Yes, I do expect Representative Quint will be back on at some point. Yeah. But that's it.
Okay. Well, why don't we get started with the bill analysis for the work session, and the bill number is not easily in front of me. Colleen, guide me on what it's 1494.
Yes.
And it is a bill regarding limited line self-storage insurance. So Colleen, if you could just do the briefing for me, that would be great.
Sure. I think everybody can see this. So this is LD 1494. As Senator Sanborn mentioned, it deals with creating a limited lines self-storage insurance. It would add a new chapter to the Title 24A in the insurance code to create self-storage insurance as a limited line insurance that would provide coverage against loss or damage to someone's personal property in if they are a self-storage customer that occurs either while the property is inside a self-storage space or in transit to or from a self-storage facility. The bill would permit certain self-storage providers and their employees to sell or offer this type of coverage to customers who rent or lease self-storage space. So the language of the legislation would describe the application process for a self-storage insurance limited lines license. It has some requirements for self-storage providers to obtain a limited lines license or to receive training from a licensed insurer before they can sell or offer self-storage insurance to their customers. It also requires certain disclosures be made to customers when selling or offering self-storage insurance. It describes some of the duration and fees associated with the limited lines license, and then it would authorize the superintendent of insurance to assess penalties for any violations of the provisions. As drafted, I mentioned the bill would add self-storage insurance as a new type of limited lines license. It would permit the sale of this type of insurance by employees of a self-storage facility holding a limited lines license to sell insurance to their customers without requiring each individual employee to be individually licensed as an insurance producer. So it does provide an exemption from that general requirement that anyone offering, selling, or negotiating insurance must be licensed as an insurance producer before doing that. But it does, as I said, outline certain conditions that need to be met before that can happen. There are some examples in current law that LD 1494 is based on in part. Both portable electronic device insurance and travel insurance may be offered as limited lines insurance products. There were a few technical changes that were suggested to LD 1494. The Bureau of Insurance suggested clarifying some of the language to reflect that employees of facilities that sell this product may not hold themselves out as other than a limited lines insurance producer. They also suggested clarifying a provision in the bill related to the fees that a self-storage insurance limited lines license would be required to pay. The language as drafted in the original bill refers to the existing fees in statute for portable electronic device insurance. But they suggested creating a specific provision for self-storage insurance. One of the outstanding issues perhaps may be what the appropriate level of the fee might be. And then lastly, there was additional technical change that proponents of the bill suggested in the definition of location to specify the location of a self-storage facility in the state is what is intended. We don't yet have any fiscal information, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And I know you have a few folks in the attendee list, I think, are here for this bill.
Thanks, Colleen. So just to sort of open up the conversation, I think that the only real issue, as far as I know of with this bill, is relating to the fees. We did receive some information, or I received some information about fees in other states nearby that have this type of limited lines license. So in New York, it's an $80 fee for 2 years. In Massachusetts, it's $100 per facility per year. And in Vermont, it's $30 for 2 years. So they vary a bit, but they're much lower than the personal electronic device limited lines insurance license that the Bureau related this to, which has a $1,000 fee. And so I guess I just wanted to point out that I think self-storage facilities in Maine are largely not owned by large corporations like Verizon and AT&T, which are the types of folks who are licensed to sell personal electronic device limited lines insurance. So I wanted to suggest that we mirror the Massachusetts fee, which is $100 per facility. And so I was hoping that either Superintendent Chopper or Mr. Yardley could join us to let us know if that would work. Mr. Yardley and Superintendent Chopper can both join us. They both put their hands up. Good afternoon to both of you. I'll just throw the question out there and allow you guys to decide who wants to answer.
Well, I'll answer. $100 is, we're fine with that amount.
Okay, great.
I guess if I could
go ahead.
Throw in, there was a request from the licensing group that there'd be a renewal fee.
Okay. And is it typical for the renewal fee to be half of what the original fee is?
Actually, I think on a couple of lines, it's equal. So, but as the superintendent implied, I think we're fairly flexible on that.
Yeah, this is not a big revenue generator or a big expense either way. So, you know, I think the
Okay.
more important bill, $50 is fine for renewal.
Okay, well, let's do that then. I'll make a motion just because nobody else seems to be jumping in here. So I'll just make a motion. Ought to pass is amended with $100 and $50 as the fee structure. Senator Brenner, was that a second? Yeah, okay. Is there any further discussion about the bill? All right. Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Representative Quint. Representative Quint is absent. Representative Connor. Representative Connor is absent. Representative Blyer. Your mic was muted.
Yes.
Representative Blyer, yes. Representative Morris.
Yes.
Representative Morris, yes. Representative Matheson.
Yes.
Representative Matheson, yes. Representative Evans.
Yes.
Representative Evans, yes. Representative Arford.
Yes.
Representative Arford, yes. Representative Millerano.
Yes.
Representative Millerano, yes. Representative Brooks.
Yes.
Representative Brooks, yes. Senator Stewart. Senator Stewart is absent. Senator Brenner.
Yes.
Senator Brenner, yes. Representative Tepler.
Yes.
Representative Tepler, yes. Senator Sanborn.
Yes.
Senator Sanborn, yes. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yes, 3 absent, but Representative Quinn has joined the call.
Representative Quint, do you want to register your vote now?
No, I will get back on my vote. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, so we have some language review to do as well. Colleen, 10, 11, that's the issue. Let's pick up 10, 11 first.
Sure.
So I think on this bill, so 1011 is an act to include excluded individuals on insurance cards. And the issue was raised after we voted on this bill, that in certain cases, commercial insurance policies might exclude individuals, and you might not want to have the privacy issue of having a coworker know that a particular coworker is excluded. And that wasn't really the impetus for the bill in the first place. So I would entertain a motion for reconsideration. This was a unanimous vote. Representative Morris, go ahead.
Yes, I move that we reconsider LD. Is it 1011? Because I think
it's 1011.
Yes,
1011.
Okay, and it's been seconded by Representative Evans. I think we can do a motion for reconsideration. I expect it'll be unanimous, so I think we can do it with a show of hands in our boxes. Representative Blyer and Representative Evans, we need to see your hands. Great, so it is unanimous of those present to reconsider the bill. So Representative Morris, do you want to make another motion?
Yes, I can. I move ought to pass as amended by with what Colleen has on the language review today as well, but exempting commercial policies. I think that's what we're looking for. Is it exempting or that it applies only to personal?
Yep. I think we can figure out the wordsmithing on that either way, but the intent is clear.
Yep.
Are there any questions or any further discussion with regard to the motion? Is there a second? Representative Quint seconds, and we'll take another roll call vote.
Representative Quint.
Yes.
Representative Quint, yes. Representative Connor. Representative Connor is absent. Representative Blyer.
Yes.
Representative Blyer, yes. Representative Morris.
Yes.
Representative Morris, yes. Representative Matheson.
Yes.
Representative Matheson, yes. Representative Evans.
Yes.
Representative Evans, yes. Representative Arford.
Yes.
Representative Arford, yes. Representative Millerano.
Yes.
Representative Millerano, yes. Representative Brooks.
Yes.
Representative Brooks, yes. Senator Stewart. Senator Stewart is absent. Senator Brenner.
Yes.
Senator Brenner, yes. Representative Tepler.
Yes.
Representative Tepler, yes. Senator Sanborn.
Yes.
Senator Sanborn, yes. That's 11 yes, 2 absent.
Great. All right, Colleen, let us know what other language review we've got.
Yeah, I don't think that had no fiscal impact, so I don't expect this change will affect the fiscal review, but I'll bring you back a revised amendment when it is ready. I also not sure it's necessary, but because it's where it's placed in the statute, but I'll double check that because it's in the financial responsibility provisions, which is just personal, but I'll look at it again. So
okay, great.
Okay, so I'll quickly share the other amendments. Let's see, there are 3 of them now, so I don't know why this one doesn't want to share. So they don't seem to want to. Hold on.
How strange.
The first 2 don't want to show up, so I might have to go back and add them again. But this one is LD 1176. This was the bill sponsored by Representative Fay. We added some specific language to the amendment specifying that insurers would use the value of comparable motor vehicles located in specified states to the extent that comparable vehicles were available in these states, and an insurer may use a comparable motor vehicle in another state not specified in the statute only after determination that comparable motor vehicles are not available. So it was yellow or shaded. You can barely see the shaded, but it's in the last 3 lines where the underlined language where we added that clarification. And you had seen this language actually when you voted it, but you hadn't seen the fiscal, which is no fiscal impact. So I just wanted to make sure you saw that as well. This was a majority report. I think there were 2 members of the committee who voted ought not to pass. But so the amendment is the majority report on LD 1176. So I'm going to go back and pull up my other documents. Give me 1 second. I don't know why they didn't show up the first time. Sometimes when you save something as a PDF, it doesn't always translate. So.
I may be able to share it.
Yeah, I know I emailed it, but I hope that it came through in the email. That makes me wonder if
Are we looking at 522 or?
We are, the one that I just emailed. Either one, whichever one you could pull up. So.
Yeah, it came through. So hang on 1 sec while I get some of my other stuff down, and then I could share it. I think.
I'm gonna pull it out. I don't know why it's not working for me, so let me pull it up here. Here we go. I pulled it up now. If you
okay, great. We'll let Colleen do it.
I got it.
Slow.
I got 522 up. Yeah, so here it is. I'll have to go back and open up the other one, but this was LD 522. This also you saw this language when you previously took the vote on this bill. This was Senator Bennett's bill relating to, as originally titled, to cap interest rates for consumer debt, but as amended by the committee, you narrowed the focus to prohibiting certain predatory lending practices. So there's a change in the title, and then the addition of these new sections relating to prohibiting certain practices by entities covered by the Consumer Credit Code. There's also, as you might recall, unallocated language asking the Bureau of Consumer Credit Protection to do a study focused on short-term small dollar loans, looking at the interest rates among other New England states and other provisions regulating consumer debt, and reporting back to you next session. But you had not yet seen the fiscal information. And before it gets reported out, just to satisfy the rules, I want to make sure you saw that, which is any minor cost to the Bureau of Consumer Credit Protection can be absorbed within their existing budget. So that's LD 522. That was a unanimous committee report. And then the last one is also unanimous. It's LD 541. I think everybody can see this one now as well. This was the bill relating to adding cancer incidence registry data and vital statistics data as data reported by the Department of Health and Human Services to the MHDO. You did see this language when you took the vote on the bill. Just to update you on, the Judiciary Committee conducted their review of subsection 2 here at the bottom, which is protects the confidentiality of that information that's reported to MHDO. And the Judiciary Committee approved the language as drafted. Thank you to Senator Sanborn for doing that review with them for us. And I just wanted to make sure you saw the fiscal note for this. One of the elements of the legislation that you might recall is the establishment of an advisory committee to MHDO, and 2 of the members of the advisory committee are legislators. And so the legislative rules relating to the legislative budget is that the legislature is responsible for paying any per diem or expenses of legislative members for attendance at any meetings, whether it's legislative meetings or participating in advisory committees or other committees that would otherwise be organized by the executive branch. So there is would be needed a general fund appropriation of $780 to provide funding for the costs of legislator participation in the advisory committee. So the amendment would need to be an appropriation section would need to be added to the amendment to reflect those costs if it moves forward as drafted. If the committee was concerned about the fiscal impact, because the bill would go to the special appropriations table because of that general fund appropriation, you could always amend the membership of the advisory committee to remove the legislators as participants.
Colleen, would it go to the, does it go to the regular special appropriations table, or does it go to the special study table?
It'll go to both, I think. It'll be referred to the special appropriations table because it has a general fund appropriation, and then it will also be referred to the special study table. I think practically, my understanding is that it would probably go to the study table first and for the review, and then if it's approved, then it kind of moves on that way, but it qualifies for both because
What's
of
the, sorry, what's the
general
general
fund.
appropriation? Can you go back to the fiscal note?
Oh, sure. It's $780. Do you see that here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
isn't that the same as the study table? It's all just for the legislature, right?
yeah,
No,
this
it's
is
not.
This is not a if you're asking about sort of the general amount that they set aside for studies,
Yeah.
every that's usually like a $10,000 set aside for all legislative studies, like that committees might do, or interim meetings. This would be a separate appropriation specifically for the cost of those 2 legislators to participate on the advisory committee. So it would cover their per diem and expenses. And it's anticipated to be $780 annually. So my discussions with the director of the the budget person for the legislature, it's not lumped in with as a legislative study as part of that, because it's an ongoing advisory committee as it's drafted. So it's presented here as an ongoing appropriation of that small amount annually.
Okay. All right, and that was it for language review?
That was all I had, yeah.
All righty. Well, I think Representative Quint, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to let Christian know on 1494, I'm a yes. I
Great.
just wanted that, get the paperwork out before I saw that.
Thanks, Representative Quint.
Thank you.
Are there any other announcements from the committee? Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to flag for folks to make sure you're watching for the emails from LIO with regards to signing jackets. I know 603, I believe, is still outstanding because it's missing signatures. That's all.
Okay, thanks. I think those are often coming from Casey Milligan, so you can look for that name in your inbox, and we'll try and get those out so we can get them onto a calendar and get them voted. And Christian and Colleen and Denise, let's take a minute and do some scheduling.
Thank you.
We'll get some work sessions scheduled. So we'll Christian, if you could send us a link for that. And I think that's about it for today, unless anybody else has any other announcements. And we'll see you all in person tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.